you my Uber driver?
Yes. How are you?
What?
Hey, look. You gotta pick up them side gigs however you want.
Yeah, I feel you. Side hustle. It's a good one.
That's what you gotta do.
This is good.
How are you?
Oh, I'm dandy. I'm warmer now. It's a little bit chilly outside. Yeah,
Yeah, buckle up. I don't want my car yelling at me.
I would rather not.
Buckle up for safety. Also, you're not allowed. This isn't carpool karaoke. I don't have that kind of budget. All right.
What?
You're not allowed to sing any major pop songs.
Okay.
I can't afford any of that. I know you're big on singing.
But yeah, that's my thing. And I'm first of all hurt that you don't even have any music going in the car.
No, I can't even afford that.
This is a silent drive.
I can't afford the radio at this point. All right.
even terrestrial radio that's free.
Nope.
Can't afford it.
Nope, cannot
Definitely
afford it.
having the radio on.
Hey, times are tight.
Sucks
right?
gas up, kids.
It's
Keep
fine.
that in mind.
We're gonna run this red light. Don't worry about it.
All right,
good.
cool. Well, the police have nothing to do right now, so
It's fine. It's not.
they're not out.
All right, so we're doing kind of a newer video series where I just wanted to pick a couple of my leaders' brains and kind of hear about their story, hear about their life, all that type of stuff. And don't mind my audio guy in the back; he's fine.
Oh,
he's just,
hey, Keaton. I didn't see you there.
It's fine.
Hey.
Everyone has their own audio guy sitting
right.
in the back seat, right? It's not a big
yeah.
deal. But what I want to know is some defining moments in your life, because I think we all have defining moments, the moments that really kind of shaped the way we see the world, shaped our life, and we might not know it in the moment that they're defining moments. Maybe we look back on it and be like, man, that was a pivotal moment in my life. So I want to hear 2 defining moments from your life. Let's start with two. I know we're gonna get deep into your psyche.
Clearly,
right now.
yeah.
It's
This is rough.
All right. So, what is your first defining moment that you think?
Probably the first would be probably my parents' divorce. They divorced when I was probably about 6, because we moved up here when I was about 7 or so. So I know that affected me really a ton. Like, I don't remember. I think because of their divorce and because of the trauma, if you will, of it, it affected me in a lot of ways that I don't remember a lot of my childhood. Granted, I'm old, so there's that.
You are.
You know,
you're ancient.
I am.
Agree.
Oldest guy on the tech team. But I think so much of what happened during that time, in terms of just the sadness, not knowing what's going on, like, I didn't find out really the reason for my folks' divorce until a month before my dad passed 10 years ago. So I had this, I guess, underlying guilt for
why it happened,
70 plus years, because again, I'm old. Just thinking that, was I the cause of this? Like, am I? Because they don't. Neither parent talked about it. None of them. My mom wouldn't, because it affected her really deeply. My dad didn't, because I'm sure he just had a lot of regret. So finding out, like I said, a month before he passed kind of put me at peace some, but knowing, had all that to say that, because I think of the trauma, the sadness, the anger, the resentment, everything that kind of went into the feelings I had with their divorce, so much of my childhood is in just blips and clips, and I don't remember a ton of it. I think because the brain and its magnificent defense mechanism has allowed me to shield me from the trauma and that. So I'm my mom would tell me things that happened in my life, and I just have to look at her and say, no, it didn't. We also have a green.
Oh, it's fine. I'll go whatever. It's fine. I'm trying to be a good listener.
I see the car behind us, and I don't want them to start honking, and then
it's fine.
Things like that happen.
Okay, so your parents split up. Do they move to different cities? What is your life now look like? Are you only living with one parent? Are you going back and forth? What does your life look like?
For me, what happened is because of my dad's profession, he had to stay in LA for work. For those of you watching at home who don't know what my dad's profession was,
what he's about to say is 100% true. He's not making a joke.
You can Google this.
Go ahead.
My dad, for 32 years, was the voice of Mickey Mouse.
Fun fact.
So there you go.
Mickey Mouse voice.
I might at the end. We'll do it at the end.
So your dad stays in LA.
Dad stays in LA for work.
Where does your mom go at this point?
So my mom and I both moved up here for Fresno because she had family here. And she just wanted, I guess, to get far away. So
too much of a drive, but
no,
there's
not
still
too much
a
of
couple
a drive.
hours in between. Obviously, it's not like moving to Florida or anything like that.
Thankfully, it's
like,
not, like,
it is
states apart.
So, are you kind of bouncing back and forth between both sets of parents, or both parents, or what?
No. So the situation we had was, I don't remember what it was like at first, like the first couple years. It may have been driving, and I don't even know if it was like pick me up in Bakersfield and they drive the rest of the way, so it was like a halfway point. What I do remember is like probably around 8, my dad started like having me fly down from Fresno to LA. So what I would remember is I would fly down on a Friday after school. I would spend basically like the rest of the weekend with him, and then Sunday evening, afternoon, I would fly back home. And that happened once a month from 8 to 18. Once probably around 16 maybe, I remember I spent an entire summer with him, which was really cool. But other than that, like he would come up if I was doing a show. He'd come up and see me in a show. But that was like the extent of our actual like physical interaction, like, which sucked because honestly, like the connection I had with him is so much deeper and more profound than like the relationship I have with my mom.
Right.
So while we talked on the phone at least once a day, it just wasn't the same.
Right. It's different.
Yeah. And I think because of that, I had so much just anger, I think, toward my mom too. Again, not knowing the circumstances for their divorce, of just being like, why did you move away? Why did you take me away from the person that like
you did this?
You did this.
Yeah.
And so there was a ton of anger and resentment toward her that I mean, as I got older, probably in my 40s, jokes because I'm old. We'll do that by half. I wrote her a letter just saying, you know what, I apologize for this unfounded just resentment I have toward you, because it's not your fault. Like, I have no reason to be angry with you. I understand why you moved away. You moved away because you wanted like a better life for you, for me, and you just had to get away. And so I apologize. And I think she still has that letter, which is cool.
Yeah. So is that why it's probably such a defining moment? Not only because it changed your life, but it sounds like it radically changed your relationship with both parents. It radically changed your relationship with your dad. It radically changed your relationship with your mom because of resentment and kind of. Is that why it was such a defining kind of moment? In part to that, I mean, obviously there was physical changes, moving, all that type of stuff.
I think it was. I think also that may have been. So my mind works faster than my mouth. I suffer with depression, like a lot, and I feel like I mask it with humor.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a general.
I don't know anything about that. That's like it's weird because I don't use humor as a defense mechanism either. Like I don't understand where you're coming from right now.
No one does. It's weird. This is all asinine what I'm saying. So I think that another reason it's a defining moment for me is because I feel like that particular moment in time with them probably is a large part of what triggered the depression that I've had my entire life. And it's like, while it's over, it's like done, everything's kind of at peace with myself in terms of their divorce and whatnot, but that's still something that hasn't gone away.
Right.
It's something that just hits me and affects me. And
it's almost one of those things where mentally it's almost resolved, but it's not like the effects are still there. Yeah, the effects are still there. No matter like how resolved it's going to be in your mind.
Nothing can like take that away. So I think that also is another reason why it's a huge defining moment for me, is because it's like, while my world completely changed, granted I was 6 and so I shouldn't really remember a ton of it, the effects of it and the after effects of it have affected me for 36 years now.
And there's part of that too where it's you probably don't have that many or any memories of your parents being together, being happy, being a family, whatever you want. So, like that has huge consequences.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I have photos that show us as a family.
Yeah. It's like, there at one point we were, but I don't actually remember
outside of that, I don't remember it. There was a video that my dad and I made one day. He was home with bronchitis or something like that, and he and I made like a stop motion video that I wish I could find. That's because cool. it's, I think, one of the only videos, any sort of recording that I have with he and I doing something together.
That's cool.
But I have no idea where it is.
Yeah.
I think my mom may have just tossed it in with like a bunch of tapes,
yeah.
and
that's
it's been lost to time.
Yeah.
But so that probably is definitely one of the most defining moments of my life.
So you have the defining moment of your parents getting divorced when you were 6, and obviously it's one of those where at 6 you didn't know it was a defining moment.
I don't know that at the
barely
time.
Remember any of it, but it had such long lasting effects. But I would imagine your next defining moment, you knew at the time it was a defining moment.
Yeah.
You knew this is going to impact me significantly. So what is your kind of second defining moment that really kind of changed the trajectory of your life a little bit?
So the second one, actually, and this is also the weirdest Uber drive I've ever had. I'm just going to toss it
I won't
out
charge
there.
you for this.
Okay,
It's fine. It's fine.
God bless. Thank you. The second one actually does involve my dad again, and it was his death 11 years ago now. 11 years ago. So the reason why, for me, it was a huge defining moment is prior to his death, well, I'll go back through my whole history. So, baptized Catholic, peace be with you and also with you. As a child, and when my mom and I moved up here after the divorce, at the time, Catholicism was very much against divorce, and if you were divorced, you were verboten from going into the church. Mm-hmm. So, she and I stopped going to church for, probably 6-7 years when we moved up here, just because it was so frowned upon, and it was something that she really wanted to get back into. She was also raised Catholic. She went to Catholic school. Her parents, my grandparents, were Catholic, like strictly, crazily devout Catholics. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge part of her life. I should say it was a huge part of her life, because they don't go anymore for whatever reason to any sort of denomination. So eventually she was in college. She ran into a friend of hers who said, "Hey, why don't you come try my church?" And my mom was like, "Well, fun fact, I'm divorced, so I don't know how that's looked upon like in your church." And they're
am I going to be judged?
Yeah, am I going to be judged?
Am I accepted?
Can I even be allowed in the doors?
No,
And the lady was like, "Well, we're Lutheran. It's kind of like Catholic light, and we are okay with divorce, so come on down." So we went to a Lutheran church for, probably, it was probably around 10 or so, because I remember my sister was born and she was baptized there and went through everything, confirmation and all that. Mm-hmm. So I went to the Lutheran church for about 8 years. When I moved out, I stopped going to church completely because I started doing theater, and you usually have 2 shows on Sunday, and when that's the case, sleep becomes a lot more valuable.
Yeah.
And so
a little different of a scene.
A little bit. Yeah. And there's not too many. I hate to say it. I love the theater community, but there's not too many folks within the theater community that are within the circle that I used to run in, I should say, that would go to church. So
that's fair.
It is what it is. So once I stopped going to church, like at 18 when I moved out, it's not like I really, again, to back up, I never really felt like I had too much of a connection with God when we were going to the Lutheran church. Like, my voice, to get into puberty, changed, I believe, like summer of going into my sophomore year. Mm-hmm. So once that happened at the church, they were like, "You've got a really cool sounding voice. Like, we want you to help do like the readings. Can you do these before the pastor does the third one?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And despite going to youth group, despite all of that, like I never felt like a connection with God. I never felt like I was connecting with His Word, that any of it was really having an impact on me.
You were doing things for the church and in the church, but it still felt disconnected.
It felt completely disconnected. Just felt very foreign, and we weren't like. It's not like we would come home and we would discuss like what happened in like the message. We wouldn't do Bible readings, anything at home. I think my family just kind of went as this is what families do. They go to church, and that's
we do this on Sunday morning, and
that was like the extent of it. Like I think. That was the deepest connection that we as a family had. So that's why I think when I kind of stopped going at 18, like it didn't have a profound effect on me, because I'm like, I didn't really feel connected to this anyway. What's the point of going? Yes, I'm a believer. I believe there's like that God exists. I believe in all this stuff, but I don't feel connected to God.
Yeah.
So, when I was 23, I remember I got a phone call from my dad one day, because he and I still like talked every day, regardless of the ability that I had to go down and see him and stuff like that. We would still talk every day because he and I were super, super close. And he called and said, so, went to the doctor, blah, 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 basically saying, hey, I found out that I have pancreatic cancer.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, that comes as a complete shock, because it's not like he was the healthiest dude really to begin with, but like something like that's huge. And so at that point, I feel like I got a little bit more, I guess at the time I would have to say spiritual. I won't say religious, because since religion wasn't a part of my life fully at that time, I became more spiritual, and I was like, well, you know, let me start praying again. And so I would pray.
That kind of motivated, kickstarted it a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So I got back into praying again for him and just hoping it'd be fine. Like, thankfully, I am incredibly grateful that the pancreatic cancer that he had allowed him to live another 7 years. Like, I know there's basically two kinds, where it's like either you get it and you can live for years, or you get it and within weeks, months, like you're gone.
Yeah.
So
you can advance very quickly.
Yeah. So I'm very lucky, grateful, blessed that he had the 7 years that I had to be able to spend more time with him.
Yeah.
When he passed, I remember feeling like I was mad. I think I was really mad at God, because I know, like, you know, it's not like there's a cure for cancer. There's not, obviously. But I remember just thinking, like, you know, why did this happen? I'm only 30. He was 62, I think, when he passed. So it's not like he was old by any means. And I think just the anger and frustration, all the feels, if you will, in regards to this. I feel like with all the anger, frustration, everything I had right then, I completely turned off to religion. I felt like, you know, why would God allow this to happen? Why would it happen to a good person?
Yeah.
Why did he take him away from me? Like, you know, when I feel like I'm so young, not that 30 is like super young, but I'm like, it's only like a third into my life, if I'm hoping to make it to 90.
Yeah.
So there was just all these frustrations, angers, and I completely shut off any sort of like religion whatsoever. And I was done. And I was just like, you know what? Throwing double fists to the sky and saying, I'm out. I can't. I'm not
so
about it.
Him getting diagnosed almost helped your spiritual life, but then him passing away hurt.
Yes, completely. It hurt it in the sense that, like, I was just against it. Like, I was done. And I know it's weird, because I feel like when things like that happen, when people either get diagnosed or when somebody passed, like, it's that same way, where it's like either you get drawn closer to him or you're completely pushed away from him. And
very few people stay
in the same.
Yeah, it's either better or worse.
So it's just funny to me thinking that I'm like, prior to his passing, like, you know, I was getting closer, and then when it passed, I was like, nope, I'm done. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then for a good, it was 6-7 years. Yeah. I was just completely against it. I met my then future wife, Destiny, who is a ridiculously, let's say she's ridiculous. She's just crazy.
She's better than you. Let's be real for a minute.
I think that's the correct answer for all husbands to say about their wives, though. Is they're
you in particular?
You basket case of emotion. She's great.
Yeah.
She has been a Christian her whole life. Yeah. She's very connected to God. And when we first met, when we first started dating, she wanted me to go back to church, and I was like, good luck with that.
Not interested.
Yeah. And she eventually got, I don't remember what it was. It may have been like she just somehow said something, and I was like, fine. Like, I just was tired of the argument. I was like, fine, I'll try it. Yeah. And I remember I went with her to Northside, and it was a message that Dave was preaching, and I remember sitting there, and I was going through the motions. Like, I was open to it at that point. I think I'd been worked out enough to be like, okay, you know what, I like you enough
Yeah.
that I will try
I'm
this.
going to listen
Yeah.
a little bit. Maybe not all the way, but a little bit.
If this is potentially a deal breaker with our relationship, okay, I'll do this. And I remember going, and I don't even remember what Dave was preaching on, but I felt like when it was done, I told her, I went home and I was like, I can't do this. And she's like, well, why can't you do it? And I was like, well, I feel like whatever message he was preaching on somehow was directed, the intent of the message plus wherever he was looking out in the house was directed right at me.
Yeah.
Dude's angry, like, most of the time, like, he is just, in my mind, yelling, and this is just a personal attack.
He read my diary. He knows everything I'm going through.
How does he know all these things about me? This is horrible.
It's weird how that works, huh?
And so I was incredibly convicted and felt like, this is why I don't go to church, because this dude's just ripping into me. I don't need this dose of truth in my life. I'm out. And then I went back again, like, a couple weeks later, and it got a little bit better, but I was like, I'm still a little bit leery. And then she's like, okay, so maybe you don't like Dave's preaching style, which is funny now because, he and I are friends. I think he's great. I think his preaching style is fantastic. But what kept me going back is eventually he was like, okay, so maybe you don't like this preaching style. Let me show you. Wow.
It's aggressive.
We have like 3 minutes.
All right.
Shh. Give you 3 minutes. Give you 47 minutes of content. At the end, she was like, you know what? Let me show you Lido. And I was like, okay, I don't know who this guy is. And she showed me one of his random, like, standalone sermons that they had online. And I was like, holy cow, like, I get this. Like, I connect with this guy. Right. This guy sounds like somebody that would be incredibly good friends with me. Like, that's kind of what drew me back in.
All you theater nerds are like, just hate it. It's
We're crazy. Yes, coming from someone who never did theater ever in his life.
I don't know what you're talking
does
about.
not talk
How
about it
dare
ever.
You.
But Lido really is kind of what drew me back in. His style, his everything. And so that kind of, between, I'd say, a combination of my wife. Well, first of all, I'd say a combination of God, my wife, and Lido broke down the walls that I had up that I was so against going back to church. And now I work here. Like, it's crazy to think that, like, in a span of 6-7 years, like, that my life has changed that much and it's been impacted that much. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to hear, like, these defining moments that happen in our life, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they draw us closer to God, whether they push us away from God. Like, it all leads to where we are now. Yeah. And maybe we love the spot that we're in now, maybe we hate the spot we're in now, like, whatever it is. But it just, I think it goes to show, like, how we almost can't rest on that relationship with God. You almost have to continue to improve it because stuff is going to happen. Good things, bad things, all those different things. And sometimes we react poorly to God when good things happen because we're like, oh man, life's great. I don't need you.
Yeah, I don't.
But then other times we react, poorly when bad times happen. It's like, God, why'd you do this? So just those defining moments keep, happening in our life, and we might not know it in the time. It might take us 20 years after the fact to realize that it was a defining moment. But those defining moments can really have an impact on our relationship with God and how we view Him. And so,
completely.
Well, we're not back to the church yet, but I'm just going to drop you off here.
That works.
You're going to have to walk home.
Daryl's Mini Storage?
Yeah, you want to go to the Daryl's Mini Storage?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. They've got a fountain. I can...
It's fine. Just walk.
There's
walk
lots
home.
of people
That's
out.
fine. I'll take you back.
Supposedly quarantined.
Thank you for sharing your defining moments with us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for kind of talking about everything going on in your life. So appreciate that. And hopefully we won't rear end this person in front of me.
It's just a Volkswagen.
It's fine. It's all right.